Imagine surviving prison, exile, a revolution, the Cold War, and hundreds of alleged assassination plots while ruling a country for nearly half a century. This is the story of Fidel Castro. Before becoming one of the most recognizable leaders of the 20th century, Castro was simply a young Cuban law student with a growing hatred for corruption and dictatorship. Born in Cuba in 1926, he studied law at the University of Havana and quickly became involved in political activism. As Cuba fell under the rule of Fulgencio Batista, Castro became convinced that the country's problems could not be solved through traditional politics. So in 1953, he decided to take action. Leading a group of rebels, Castro launched an attack on the Moncada barracks, one of Cuba's largest military installations. The operation was a complete failure. Many of his followers were killed, and Castro was arrested and sentenced to prison. For most people, that would have ended their political career. For Castro, it became the beginning of one. After serving nearly 2 years in prison, he was released and forced into exile in Mexico. And it was there that history took a dramatic turn. In Mexico City, Castro met an Argentine doctor and revolutionary named Che Guevara. The two shared a vision of overthrowing Batista's government and transforming Cuba. Together, they began preparing for a revolution. In 1956, Castro, Che Guevara, and 80 other revolutionaries boarded a small yacht called the Granma and sailed toward Cuba. The mission nearly collapsed before it even began. After landing, government forces attacked them. Most of the revolutionaries were killed, captured, or scattered. Only a small group survived. Yet from the mountains of the Sierra Maestra, Castro rebuilt his movement and launched a guerrilla war against Batista's government. Over the next 2 years, support for the regime steadily eroded while Castro's forces gained momentum. Then, on January 1, 1959, Batista fled Cuba. The revolution had succeeded. Castro entered Havana as a revolutionary hero and soon became the dominant political figure in the country. But victory created new enemies. As Castro nationalized industries, seized foreign-owned assets, and aligned Cuba with the Soviet Union, relations with the United States rapidly deteriorated. The decades that followed were filled with confrontation. The Bay of Pigs invasion, the Cuban Missile Crisis, economic sanctions, and hundreds of alleged assassination plots. Yet despite all of it, Fidel Castro remained in power for nearly 50 years. To his supporters, he was a revolutionary who stood up to a superpower and transformed Cuba. To his critics, he was an authoritarian ruler who suppressed political opposition and restricted freedoms. But regardless of where one stands politically, one fact remains undeniable. The young lawyer who failed to overthrow a government in 1953 would go on to become one of the most influential and controversial leaders of the Cold War era.